All praise to Yahweh Shem Shai Bashim Kadash. Make this super quick. Shalom to the hopeful elect out there. And I'm going to entitle this video, The Wine of Her Fornication and the Charagma Have Nothing to Do with Each Other. Or, the wine of her fornication and the Charagma are two different things. So I'll make this short. I want to go to, I'm right here. Doom of Babylon. We know if you're an insider, if your spiritual eyes are open, you know what and who Babylon is. So it says, I was thinking of starting at the first. Let me start at the second. I'm going to read the second, possibly the third and the fourth. Revelation 17:2, with whom the kings of the earth, meaning the leaders. Matter of fact, let's look that word up. So when somebody jumps up and say, well, there's no kings or no queens, it's a democracy. The only king and queen is some Arab kings and queens and princes and princesses in England. Well, all of them are kings, whether they're labeled kings or not. So this is from the Greek, G9, 935. And the word is, I'll let you listen to it.
Strong's G 935. Basilus. Basilus.
Basilus. Like where you get the word, the basilica. Leader of a people, prince, commander. So that's a president, because the president is also known as commander-in-chief, lord of the land, king. I'm going to go to the root of that word.
Strong's G 939. Basis.
Basis, which has nothing to do with Basilus or Basil also means king, ruler, lord. Got to go into those root words, etymology. I was listening on the news of this guy, or somebody, I believe he's from Florida, that won the spelling bee. They had a spelling bee, nationwide spelling bee, and the kid that won was from the U.S., I believe from Florida, and I forget the name, the word that he spelled correctly, and they said, well, how did you know to spell that word correctly? And he said, well, it's good to go into etymology. He used the word etymology, or he used the word root words. But if I'm not mistaken, he used the word etymology, which went over a lot of people's head. It means root words, going to the root word. Because something about that particular word, it seems like, I forget the actual word. If somebody saw the spelling bee, you can give me the word. But it had the F sound in the middle of the word, which I knew it was a PH. And they said, well, the PH is silent, which means anytime you see PH, you pronounce PH as F, like F. It's like saying F. So, but I remember him saying that. I'm not sure if he said, I go through the etymology of words. I don't know if I forget what he said. I go through the root of words, but I'm positive he said the etymology of words. You got to go into the root. So now let's come back over here. Second verse, with whom the kings of the earth. So somebody can say, well, wait a minute, no kings. You got King Charles, and that's it. Kings are leaders. Go back to the root word, bezilus, if I said it correctly, means a leader, a lord, a captain, a ruler, a commander. So is a president a king? Yes. Is a governor a king? Yes. Is a mayor a king? Yes. With whom the kings, leaders of the earth, have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication. I'm going to jump straight to the 4th verse. And the woman was arrayed in purple. Give me a second. And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand. Now, General Nathaniah, he's a general now. He's no longer a bishop. Maybe he's a bishop and a general. And he went back to the Lashawan Kodash, Nathaniah. It says, and pearls, having a golden cup. So he says that's talking about the Quran, which has nothing to do with it. Cup in her hand, full of abominations and filthiness of her fornications. 5th verse, and upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery Babylon the Great, Mother of Harlots and abominations of the earth. Mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of hoes, harlots, and abomination of the earth. So we're going to pick out a couple of words, and I'm going to show you what I'm getting at. So it says, cup in her hand full of abomination and filthiness. Second verse, fornication, and inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of a fornication. So how do you become drunk? You drink liquor. You drink fermented wine or liquor. You drink it, right? So this golden cup filled up with her wine, which is fornication, has nothing to do with the charagma. Two completely different things, and I'm gonna prove that with the country, the African country Uganda, because they're not accepting the fornication of Babylon the Great, but they will accept the charagma. So the charagma has nothing to do with the fornication. It's a technical thing. Something being put in you is a technical thing. So it says having a golden cup in her hand full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. So let's pull out some words. And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color, purple and red, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand full of abominations. Let's look up the word abomination in the Greek.
Strong's G 946. Bedelugma.
Bedelugma. Let's see what it means. A foul thing, a detestable thing. You're gonna see where I'm gonna get at. You'll see in a minute where I'm going with this. Because the charagma is not necessarily a foul thing or a detestable thing. It's a technical thing. In order for you to transact a foul thing, a detestable thing of idols and things pertaining to idolatry. Okay, so abominations, a foul thing, a detestable thing. Being a happy person is a foul and detestable thing. Is a foul and detestable thing. That's why the scriptures say you delete them. You delete them. Because it says, let me come back. I got to come back. It says the fourth verse, and the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color and decked with gold and silver and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand full of abominations and filthiness of a fornication. So remember that. You're not fully in league with Babylon the Great unless you do or accept or pass laws in favor of detestable and abominable things, which has nothing to do with the charagma. It's a completely different thing. So come on back. Then it says, abomination and filthiness of her fornication. So her fornication is what? Filthiness, abominable. Let's look up the word filthiness.
Strong's G 168. Akathartes.
Akathartes. Impurity, filthiness. Full of abomination, filthiness, and filthiness of her fornication. Let's look at the word fornication. Illicit sexual intercourse, adultery. That's the word. That's adultery. When you come across the word fornication in the New Testament, it means adultery. So if countries are allied to one another, they are in bed together. That's what it's called. They are in bed together. China and Russia are in bed together. US and the Ukraine are in bed together. The NATO troops are in bed with the US. The US is in bed with the NATO, not troops, but the NATO alliance. So now, where I'm going to go with this? Let me just go. Let me just go. I don't want this. So, as you know, um, whatever her name is, Kamala Harris, which she's not for our people anyway. You know, Jake knows she's just a token Negro. We don't. There's no connection between us and her. So let me just read this right here to show you that the charagma has nothing to do with the fornication. The golden cup in her hand filled with abomination and filthiness of a fornication has nothing to do with the charagma. You can't bring the two together. So it says here, this is on YouTube. I filtered it, sanctions on Uganda, because just recently, they've been talking about it for the last month and change. But Biden got involved and he said there's definitely going to be sanctions against Uganda because they do not pass laws to protect the LMNOP community. So now let's read this right here, which shows you that the people of Uganda have to be Jakes for the most part. It said Africa, Uganda enacts tough anti-LMNOP law, draws Western condemnation, meaning American condemnation. World News. So now that they didn't accept it, all these different nations are sovereign nations. So every nation has their own set of laws, right? In these United States, it's not the United States, but these United States. The United States is a corporate organization out of Washington, D.C., out of D.C., District of Columbia. At one time, you didn't have casinos in New York because it was a law against gambling. But now they changed the law because of revenue, marijuana. You couldn't sell it, you couldn't buy it, you couldn't smoke it. Now you can sell it. Why? Did they change their morals? No, they don't have morals. It's a revenue thing. It's all about revenue. If you go back, World War I, World War II, and I believe this happened in World War II, there was a movie come out called Biloxi Blues about a story of this one guy centered around this one guy, small hat. And I forget the characters, all the different characters in the movie, but there was a scene in the movie where some MPs came into a barrack, and two guys, two Edomites, jumped out of the window of the barrack with their drawers on because they were both in the bed doing what they do, doing what Edomites do. And they jumped. They found out. They did the investigation. They caught him in the act of doing it. They ran out the window. They caught him and they court-martialed him because back in World War I, World War II, you did not do that. There was laws against that. There was laws against women wearing short mini skirts and what they call hot pants. Now, this demon, James Brown, he did a thing called hot pants that was dedicated to the fact that they changed the laws where now women could wear mini skirts and short shorts. And then at one time, you couldn't wear bikinis. Back in the turn of the century, if Edomite women, when they went to the beach, they had to wear, petticoats. They had to wear dresses. You couldn't even see their ankles, man. They were covered from head to toe. And the men wore suits. Now, what does it say in Isaiah 47? I would uncover the thigh, show their locks. I'm merely paraphrasing, which is talking about, in a bigger sense, Babylon the Great, but in a smaller sense, these women. At one time, the Edomite woman was considered pure as a driven snow. So you couldn't show nothing to them. A white man couldn't see another white man's woman. That's how pure they so. Because remember, the birth of this country is based upon their form of Renaissance Christianity. All right. So now, after World War II, bring it up to date to Clinton, he passed a law, changed the law, which is don't ask, don't tell, meaning don't say nothing that you a Mo and ain't nobody gonna tell on you. We gonna turn the other cheek, or we're gonna turn and we're gonna act like we don't see it. So you can do it, but just don't be bragging about it. Okay. Here come my main man, Osama bin Laden, and he says, nah, Nah, it's all right. You can in the military in this because in this country, at one time you couldn't do it in this country. Period. It was called sodomy. They don't even use that word anymore. Uh, so when Obama came on the scene, he made a statement and he said what did he say? He said when he passed it, officially passed it, he said what did he say? He said e pluribus unum, which went over everybody's head except for a few people. He made the statement e pluribus unum, but he said in English. He didn't say e pluribus unum, but he said out of many one, which is e pluribus unum, which is on your $1 FRN, Federal Reserve note. And then he said that basically he said you can openly be, you know, you can do what you want to do and you can be open about it. You can tell people about it. You can advertise it. In the military, they have laws that respect uh, witches, covens. So how can this? Hey, when the Most High commissioned the judges and the kings to banish the witches, right? To banish all anything that Israel worship outside of the laws of the Most High. But then at the same time, you got this place that is say we're a God-fearing country. So people should say, well, what God are you talking about? The God of the Bible. Then you go to law about. Give me a second here. I'm back. Anyway, so Uganda is a separate sovereign nation, right? That can pass their own laws, right? Why would Babylon the Great send people to push that they got to keep this law because it's in our country, so you got to do it? Let's get back into this. White House warns of potential repercussions after Uganda's parliament passes anti-elemental P bill, and I believe the punishment is death. Uganda will pay for this law, for this happy law. She's not with our people. Kamala Harris is not. Does not. We do not recognize her. She might as well got a white woman. Edomite. U.S. revokes visa of Uganda's parliament speaker over, and I guess this is the parliament speaker, over new anti-happy law. Uganda anti-happy bill sparks intense friction and global backlash. What does global backlash mean? It's not just the US is mad at Uganda. Globally, they're mad. These other nations that committed fornication with her. Uganda anti-elemental P law. U.S. President Joe Biden threatens aid cut. So they ain't gonna help. A lot of people gonna die. A lot of people gonna starve. How dare you How dare you make your own laws, Uganda? I believe this is a African-based site, Africa News. Got a lot of Israelites in Africa. Uganda youth protest U.S. Let me read that again. Uganda youth protest U.S. President Joe Biden sanctioned threat for anti-happy law. So the youth are not with. They're not with this system. This is the Prime Minister, President, Leader King of Uganda. I believe he's a J. It says Uganda's president approves tough new anti-happy law. U.S. threatens Uganda with heavy economic sanctions over anti-happy law. Read it, one or two more. European Union Parliament demands sanctions against Uganda. Okay, so that's the European Union. That's 30 nations, Edomite-based nations. European Union, the EU Parliament demands sanctions against Uganda officials. Obama and Kenyan president clash over happy rights in Africa. Uganda president 7 years ago. These people are disgusting. So I don't got to read anymore. So they're thoroughly Uganda and as well as other African states or nations are clearly against that. But wait a minute, there's more. But will they accept the CBDC, which is one step closer to the MOTB, which shows you that fornication, pursuant to Revelation 17, what is that? I read from the second verse and went to the fourth and the fifth verse. That's fornication. The charagma in Revelation 13 is something completely different. Bank of Uganda denies issuing warning on currency bouquets. How 19 African central banks are considering digital money, which is the CBDC. Read a couple more. Uganda Central Bank to explore CBDC assurance. Eswatini's central bank molds insurance of a digital currency, East Africa, to set up a common central bank in its march toward single currency. In other words, an African currency, which is going to be based upon a digital currency. And eventually you're going to have a world dollar. I see. So you can see here that these African nations, which include Uganda, let me see, it says how 19 African central banks are considering digital money. And this was as a couple of months ago. Ugandan central bank to explore CBDC. But wait a minute. They'll accept the CBDC, which is one step closer to the MOTB, but they will not accept the fornication. They will no longer lay in bed with Babylon the Great. So now when you go back a couple of weeks back, General Nathaniel tried to equate Revelation 17 and 4 with Revelation 13, 16, and 17. which clearly I proved it to you, which clearly are two different things. So just because they don't accept the elemental P laws, but they'll accept the digital currency. They'll accept the CBDC. So anyway, with that, I'm gonna say shalom.